We're going to be looking at Jonah chapter 1, verses 7 through 12 this evening. And the title of tonight's study is Decisions, 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 Decisions. Last that we saw of Jonah, he was getting yelled at by mariners because Jonah was sleeping in the belly of the ship while the ship was sinking around him. That's what happened to Jonah last time. How will Jonah respond now to this rebuke at the hands of these seafaring mariners? Well, that's what we're going to be looking at here in Jonah chapter 1, verses 7 through 12. So let's read it here now. Jonah chapter 1, verse 7. And they, the mariners, said to one another, "Come, let us cast lots, that we may know on whose account this evil has come upon us." So they cast lots, and the lot fell on Jonah. Then they said to him, "Tell us on whose account this evil has come upon us. What is your occupation? And where do you come from? What is your country, and of what people are you?" And he said to them, "I'm a Hebrew, and I fear the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land." Then the men were exceedingly afraid and said to him, "What is this that you have done?" For the men knew that he was fleeing from the presence of the Lord, because he had told them. Then they said to him, "What shall we do to you that the sea may quiet down for us?" For the sea grew more and more tempestuous. Jonah said to them, "Pick me up and hurl me into the sea. Then the sea will quiet down for you. For I know it is because of me that this great tempest has come upon you." That's where we're going to halt for the evening here. Many of you have probably heard of the famous football coach, Woody Hayes. He coached at The Ohio State University from 1951 through 1978, and he is the winningest coach in Ohio State football history. Now, if you know anything about Ohio State football, they hate the University of Michigan. Meanie. Every year when Ohio State and Michigan play football over Thanksgiving weekend, that game is called literally the game. It is one of the biggest rivalries in all of sports. Not just college football, but all of sports in general. And there's a story told about Woody Hayes one year when they were playing the University of Michigan. They drove up from Columbus, Ohio into Ann Arbor, Michigan to play this football game. And once the game was over, Ohio State hopped on the bus and was heading back to Columbus, Ohio at the conclusion of that weekend's football game. While Ohio State's bus was traveling back to Columbus, Ohio from Ann Arbor, Michigan, the bus was beginning to run out of gas. The only problem was, when the bus was running out of gas, they were still in the state of Michigan. And the bus driver turned to Woody Hayes and he said, "Woody, we're running out of gas and we need to stop somewhere here in the state of Michigan to be able to get gas for our bus so we don't break down on the side of the road." In response to that comment made by the bus driver, Woody Hayes turned to him and said, "We are not stopping to get gas in the state of Michigan, lest 1/10 of 1 penny goes to benefit the University of Michigan." That's how deep-seated this hatred was for the University of Michigan on the part of Woody Hayes. It's pretty drastic. But we see some pretty drastic actions taken by Jonah here in this text in response to his enemies and his response to them. People will go a long way to show hatred for their enemies. And so we see in this text 3 observations that I'd like to make in verses 7 through 12. The dice, the dialogue, and the decision, and the Luke Becker. Yes, student pictures have now made a reappearance into the slideshows. So if I reach out to you and text you to like, "Hey, hold up a 3, or hold up a 4, or hold up a 2, or do something like crazy so I can put you in the slides," just do it, please, because you will get a shout out on Wednesday nights. The dice, the dialogue, and the decision. I'd like to break this text into those three sections. So let's look at the dice that come into play here in verse 7. Verse 7. And the mariners said to one another, "Come, let us cast lots, that we may know on whose account this evil has come upon us." So they cast lots, and the lot fell on Jonah. Now, what I want us to notice about the mariners here, dear friends, is that they think that someone else is responsible for what's happening to this ship. They think that someone else has sinned, or that someone else is rebelling against God. And therefore, the gods and the powers that be have decided to curse this ship on the part of someone else. But the mariners, they never once look into their own soul and their own heart. They think it's somebody else's problem. They think somebody else is to blame. Because as it stands right now, there is no fear of God before these mariners' eyes. Who is to blame here? Who is to blame for the weather that has befallen this ship and has made the sea tempestuous? But if these mariners recognized just how sinful they were, they would have recognized that their sin could very much have caused this ship to sink as well. It's not just about Jonah here. It's so easy to want to blame others in life, is it not? We like pointing the finger at other people, but we hate taking ownership for ourselves because other people are the problem. I'm not ultimately the problem here. If the mariners would have only recognized how sinful they were, they might not have gone after Jonah so quickly. But Jesus says in Luke chapter 13, verse 5, he says, "But unless you repent, you too will all perish." Regardless of whether you're a prophet of the Lord or you're a seafaring Gentile mariner, all people deserve hell. And unless you repent, you too will perish on this ship down to the very depths of hell. And so, the question I want to ask of this text, maybe you're curious as you read verse 7. What does it mean to cast lots? Why do these people cast lots? And why does God respond to the casting of lots from the hands of these heathen mariners? Should we cast lots today in order to be able to decide God's will for ourselves? Should we do that? It seems like God responded to it here. We know that God is sovereign over dice, right? Every single number that comes up on that die, God is in control over ultimately. So should we just use dice to be able to decide God's will? Should I marry this person or that person? Or should I live in this city or that city? Or should I get this job or that job? God, just please show me. If it comes up a 6, then I'll go live in this city. If it comes up a 5, I'll go live in this city or take that job or marry this person. Is that what we're called to do here as Christians, just like these pagan sailors do in verse 7? Well, no. I don't think we should. Because we have a better navigation system, if you will. We have God's word to be able to guide us. We have God's Spirit dwelling within us to be able to lead us and direct us and guide us in the Christian life. We do not need to cast lots to be able to decide the will of God. Where you shake a magic 8-ball and you say, okay, whatever comes up, that's what I'm going with. We don't need to do that. We have a better GPS system. We've got His Word and we have His Spirit. Now it's interesting, if you guys know your book of Acts a little bit, if you know your Bible a little bit, in Acts chapter 1, even Christians cast lots to be able to decide who would be Judas's replacement in the New Testament. That's in Acts chapter 1. Even Christians do that there. But in Acts chapter 2, God sends His Holy Spirit to dwell within His people. And you know what's amazing? After Acts chapter 2, when God sends His Spirit to be within His people, you never hear of lot casting ever again. It's not there. Nobody casts lots throughout the book of Acts any longer. Because God's Spirit now dwells within his people. And God's word would now be complete. And so we can live in light of God's word and use that to help us make decisions. Romans chapter 12, verse 2 says this: "Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect." What Paul says here in Romans chapter 12 is that God is far more pleased when you conform your mind to this book and live in light of its truth, rather than you casting lots to be able to decide the will of God. It takes far more effort to know what this book says, to get up and study it, and get up and meditate on it, and memorize the texts that are contained therein. It takes way more effort to do that than throw dice to decide the will of God. An unbeliever can do that. A Gentile sailor can do that. But you, as children of God who follow Christ, your job is to have your mind transformed by this book so that you go out and live in light of the truth contained in it. That takes work. That takes effort. And that is what pleases God. Now, this leads me into one more point in regards to the narrative when it says that they cast lots. I would like to make one more comment about this. In the Bible describes a lot of things. It describes a lot of stories, a lot of narratives. It tells you a lot of tales that are actually history. But I would like to say this. Description does not always mean prescription. Description does not always mean prescription. In other words, just because the Bible describes something that happens, that does not mean that God is prescribing you to go do that very thing that was just described. Take this pill bottle, for instance. If I were to describe to you what is contained within the pill bottle, all the ingredients, the number of pills, how often to take it, whatever, I'm merely describing to you what is in the bottle, right? But if I were to tell you, hey, you need to take these things once a day or twice a day or whatever it is, I am now prescribing you to take the pills that are in the Bible, the bottle. That's different than describing what's in the bottle. I am now prescribing you to take the pills that are in the bottle. The Bible describes a lot of things that happen without necessarily prescribing you to do those same things over and over again. An example that I can think of is polygamy in the Bible, which means that men have more than one wife throughout the scriptures. Does that mean that God is telling you to go out, if you're a fella, and marry around and be functionally Mormon here? Is that what he's telling you to do? No, he's not. He is simply describing the state of affairs that those people were in. And if you look into the narrative and you actually look at the result and the outcome of men who had many wives in the Bible, it was always a train wreck. So if you actually looked at the description, you would see that God is not prescribing that whatsoever. Description does not always mean prescription. The second thing that I'd like to look at here in this text is verses 8 through 10. The dialogue that takes place now between Jonah and the mariners. What are they to do here? The lot has just been cast, and it's now fallen on Jonah, and God has used the lot casting system to be able to expose him. What now? Verse 8. Then they said to him, "Tell us on whose account this evil has come upon us. What is your occupation? Where do you come from? What's your country? Of what people are you?" They now suddenly take a fascination with Jonah. And he said to them, "I am a Hebrew, and I fear the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land." Then the men were exceedingly afraid and said to him, "What is this that you have done?" For the men knew that he was fleeing from the presence of the Lord because he had told them. even these seafaring mariners, they've heard stories perhaps about Jonah's God and how strong he is and how powerful he is and how he has split the Red Sea and how he sent 10 plagues to punish the nation of Egypt. These people know that Jonah's God is not to be messed with. And when Jonah tells these mariners that he serves the God of Israel, it says that they were exceedingly afraid. They trembled. They know that Jonah's God is sovereign over the wind and the waves and the sea. They're beginning to fear the God of Jonah. And that's a good sign. That is a good sign, beloved. Because if anyone is to be saved and come to faith in the true God, they must fear him and have a reverential awe of him. He is not to be messed with. He's not to be trifled with. And if you are to place your faith and your hope and your trust in him, you must realize that. Psalm 85, verse 9 says this: "Surely his salvation is near to those who fear him, that glory may dwell in our land." His salvation, his saving grace, it's near to those who, in a sense, are terrified of him. These Gentile sailors are now beginning to tremble in the presence of God. They know that they do not deserve to take their next breath of air because of how sinful they are. They know that this God is not to be trifled with. And this text says that salvation is near to those people who fear him. And we're going to see by the end of this narrative that God actually saves these mariners through Jonah being cast out for his sins. Now, does that story sound kind of familiar, perhaps, to anybody in the room tonight? Somebody is sacrificed for the sins of others so that those people could be saved. Well, it reminds me of the story of Jesus. These wicked, sinful, Gentile sailors are about to be saved because Jonah is cast into the deep. Jesus was cast into the heart of the earth for your sins and my sins. And God is about to show his unmerited favor upon these sailors who didn't even fear him to begin with at the onset of this narrative. The final thing that I'd like to note about this text is the decision that the sailors and Jonah both come to in verses 11 through 12. Let's read that passage together. Then they said to him, "What shall we do to you, that the sea may quiet down for us?" For the sea grew more and more tempestuous. He said to them, "Pick me up and hurl me into the sea. Then the sea will quiet down for you, for I know it is because of me that this great tempest has come upon you." A question that has haunted me when looking at this text this past week. When Jonah says that he is going to sacrifice himself so that the storm can calm down and the sea can cease its raging. Something that has haunted me when contemplating Jonah's actions here is this question. Is this what Jonah wanted all along? Namely, to die, rather than having to go to Nineveh to preach to those wicked people. Is this what he wanted all along? Because oftentimes I think we look at this narrative and we say, oh, look at the selflessness of Jonah in this text. He's finally coming around. He's finally repenting. He's finally confessing his sins, and therefore his change of heart now enables him to want to sacrifice himself for others. Is that really what's happening here? I don't know. But it begs this question. Jonah hates these Ninevites. Why doesn't Jonah just confess his sins on the boat and say, God, I'm a wretched sinner. I'm sorry for running from your presence. I was wrong. I resisted your will. God, please forgive me and save us and save our ship. Why doesn't he do that? Because God is quick to forgive. He's eager to forgive. But Jonah, rather than doing that, he says, just kill me now, please. Is this what Jonah wanted all along? Well, that's a question that you will be wrestling with in your small groups as we break from this room now. Let's pray together. Father in heaven, Jonah's such a weird dude. That's what we are. Weird gals and dudes who are sinners who run from your will and would rather die than follow you sometimes. God, help us to be able to see ourselves in Jonah, but may we also see your grace through the story of Jonah to these wicked mariners. That's what we are too. We are people who were once separated from your love, but have been brought near to you by the blood of Jesus Christ. May we see your Son and his grace in this narrative as well. God, may we wrestle well with this text as we break now to small groups here. We pray these things in your name, Jesus.